So you can't be everybody's parent, even if you supervise them. So as a supervisor, you are not everyone's parent. There has to be a line of human respect for the other party and boundaries between you and your teammates. Now, there are certain instances where leadership is a little bit more intrusive into people's lives. For example, in the military, a lot of our junior folks live in barracks or dorms or their living quarters. Often those junior ranking members have inspections, and that is the responsibility of their supervisors. Yes, that is a bit more intrusive. Yes, that is a bit more parent-like, but that's built into the organization. So just understand the organization you're in and the levels of supervision that you want to provide and how you want to ensure you're properly supervising while also letting adults be adults. Scenario: I was overseas. I had 33 people that reported up to me, and the Air Force was going through a time of downsizing. They were allowing people to voluntarily separate. They were involuntarily separating people. Sergeant Chris came to me talking about he wanted to voluntarily separate. All right, got it. So sat down with him, had a conversation with him. You know, he's got a family, he's got a wife, he's got children. I just wanted to make sure that he was good to go, that he was making the right decision for his family. In this instance, I'm not a recruiter. I'm just talking with one of my guys to make sure that he's setting himself up for success versus just jumping ship. The gentleman actually was older than I was, but I was his supervisor. He had a job lined up back home. His family was back home, his extended family. So on both sides, his wife and his family both were in the same area. He had a home ready to go for him. I offered him some helping agencies just to see if he needed anything for his family. And we were good to go. Hey, man, I support it. I ended up pushing forward the documentation to advocate for him to separate early. We just had a grown up discussion. It was a mutual respect. He's an adult. So after this happened, you know, a lot of folks at the time actually were getting out of the military. Word kind of got around of who was wanting to separate, who was looking at getting out. I had a peer come to me and say, hey, I heard Sergeant Chris was getting out or he wanted to get out. And I said, yeah, he did. And my peer said, oh, you need to get him to stay in. He's one of the good ones. No, I don't. I had a grown up conversation with this man. I was trying to make sure his family was good to go. We're going to push his paperwork for him to separate. And my peer was like, oh, well, you know what? No, he needs to stay. And I get it. You know, my peer was coming from the place of, hey, this guy was on it. He took care of his troops. He took care of business. He knew his job very well. He was certainly an asset to our organization and to our enterprise. I also had to consider from the top level view, hey, you know, this guy is wanting to separate. He's wanting to pivot for a course in his life. There was a lot of deployments going on, things of that nature, especially for our career field. I understood from his lens, wanted some stability. Sure, man, let's get after it. The overarching picture is the force needs to downsize. This member wants to separate honorably and go on to do something different. As a supervisor, I'm supporting that. He ended up separating honorably. And I told my peer, I said, look, he's a grown man. He's got a family, he's got kids. Who am I to step in and say, no, you need to stay in service because I'm in charge of you? No, that's the wrong answer. You know, this guy wasn't 19 or 20. I probably would have had a little bit of a tougher conversation with a younger person, maybe who had a young child and who just wanted out because they hated the military. That's different. So at the end of the day, we need to understand that supervisors, while you may want to care for your folks, and there's a lot of folks that are Papa Bear or Mama Bear, that doesn't mean that you should overstep or be overbearing or be that person's parent, because you're not. But understand that there's a fine line between overstepping your boundaries and your left and right limits as a supervisor. So let me know what you think. Have you had any supervisors that may have been overreaching or thought that they were your parent? Or have you, as a leader, overstepped your boundaries at times and maybe you pressured someone to do something that they really didn't want to do and that maybe ended up being a good or bad decision in their life? Well, that's all I got for this video. Plenty more coming. Please excuse our mess as we are under construction, relocating, remodeling, things of that nature. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the next video on Restored Valor.